Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into an absolutely mind-bending reality, how nature constantly recycles its most successful biological designs literally across millions of years. If you think the age of the dinosaurs is completely over, well, think again. Today, we're going to uncover the living, breathing blueprints of the ancient world that are hiding right in plain sight. So what if the legendary dinosaurs of the past still walk among us? It sounds crazy, right? But while the massive, earth-shaking titans of the prehistoric era are, confined to the fossil record, their spirits and exact biological blueprints absolutely survive in the modern world. Nature is essentially the ultimate recycling program. It's this phenomenon known as convergent evolution. Basically, when the unforgiving laws of physics and survival demand a specific tool, evolution tends to land on the exact same incredibly effective shapes and structures over and over again. Here is our roadmap for this explainer. First, mirrors in nature. Then, deadly apex predators, followed by armored tanks and titans. After that, rulers of the water, and we'll wrap up with bizarre prehistoric biomechanics. Let's kick things off with Section 1, Mirrors in Nature, and the blueprints that survived. Moving right into Section 2, Deadly Apex Predators. Let's look at hunting machines across time. Let's start with an absolute classic. The Velociraptor's extreme agility and its very specific bipedal picking strike are perfectly mirrored by the terrestrial hunting style of today's secretary bird. Both of them share that fast, bipedal gait. Now, obviously, the ancient Velociraptor was rocking a sickle-shaped claw, serrated teeth, and a heavy reptilian tail. The secretary bird swaps the tail for flight-ready feathers and uses a sharp, hooked beak instead. But here's the wild part. Their core strategy is exactly the same. They both rely on a high-speed, bone-shattering kick to take down ground prey like snakes. Now think about the sheer difference in scale between these two. We've got the massive 13-foot, 8-ton T-Rex on one side, and the comparatively tiny 4-foot, 11-pound Shoebill Stork on the other. But despite that crazy size difference, their silhouettes are incredibly similar. They share nearly identical heavy-headed, bipedal profiles. And get this, their diets share a common theme too, reptiles. While the T-Rex famously used its bone-crushing bite to hunt other dinosaurs, the Shoebill uses an oversized, clog-shaped beak to hunt baby crocodiles. It's the exact same head-dominant design, just packaged in a completely different way. So the takeaway here is that whether you're a towering bipedal dinosaur hunting giant sauropods or a low-slung, four-legged lizard using venom to track down a meal, nature loves to recycle deadly traits. Take the Giganotosaurus and the Komodo dragon, both absolute heavyweights in their environments, right? And both equipped with these serrated shark-like teeth designed to cause maximum bleeding. Or what about the Carnotaurus and the modern Spanish bull? One is a meat-eating biped with comically tiny arms, the other is a four-legged herbivore. Yet they share the exact same thick-necked, horned profile and those highly aggressive charging instincts to dominate their territory. So that covers the hunters. But what happens when nature decides to build an impenetrable fortress? I mean, if you aren't the apex predator, how do you make absolutely sure you don't end up as lunch? That brings us to Section 3, Armored Tanks and Titans, Nature's Heavy-Duty Defenses. Prepare for a seriously mind-bending scale discrepancy. A 26-foot, 6-ton Ankylosaurus completely dwarfs a 2.5-foot, 176-pound alligator snapping turtle. Yet, they share the exact same low-slung, incredibly wide, unflippable armored posture. The Ankylosaurus used a massive tail club to defend its fortress on land, while the turtle is a semi-aquatic predator that relies on bone-crushing jaws. We see this exact same thing happen with this Styracosaurus and the white rhinoceros. Both of them rock a thick-set frame and a specialized single-horn weapon. It doesn't matter that the dinosaur used a spectacular frill with bone spikes, while the rhino relies on a keratin horn and super thick skin, the defensive blueprint is identical. And then we have the Triceratops and the Jackson's chameleon. They flawlessly share that iconic tri-horn layout, but their temperaments, completely night and day. The 10-ton dinosaur was this highly aggressive, high-speed charger that could hit 20 miles per hour just to gore a predator. On the flip side, the tiny little chameleon, weighing just a fraction of a pound, is a slow, super methodical climber. It avoids conflict entirely by using stillness and stealth up in the treetops. Same exact structural blueprint, totally different operational manual. Nature doesn't just recycle heavy armor, though. It recycles spikes and domes, too. The famous Stegosaurus used its massive back plates for either display or temperature regulation, and it defended itself with a gnarly spiked tail. Well, the modern black-knobbed map turtle perfectly mimics that spiked silhouette, except it uses its fin-like knobs mostly for camouflage and stability in fast-moving river currents. Meanwhile, the Pachycephalosaurus had a skull literally several inches thick for actual concussive headbutting matches. Today, the rhinoceros iguana mirrors that exact same reinforced, bumpy head profile, but it relies almost entirely on the visual intimidation of its horn-like scales rather than actually smashing heads. All right, let's leave dry land behind and head into the deep. Which modern reptile out there mimics the apex predator of the Cretaceous oceans? Let's dive into Section 4, Rulers of the Water are aquatic and coastal predators. Check this out. While the ancient Spinosaurus and the modern basilisk lizard share an unmistakable bipedal stance and a really striking neural spine sail on their backs, their aquatic mechanics are completely reversed. The giant Spinosaurus absolutely dominated below the surface. It was a submerged hunter that used a massive paddle-like tail for underwater propulsion. The basilisk lizard, though, it literally runs on top of the water. It's a surface runner that uses fringed toe scales and a long, whip-like tail purely to keep its balance while skimming right across the top. These matchups brilliantly illustrate how highly specialized hunting tools just keep getting recycled. The very specific, narrow, fish-snapping snout of the baryonyx is perfectly replicated by today's gharial, which uses those needle-thin jaws to snap up fish with unbelievable lateral speed. But the baryonyx was a bipedal dinosaur, swiping from the riverbanks, whereas the gharial is a four-legged reptile that barely ever leaves the water. Alongside them, you've got the mosasaurus, the undisputed apex predator of the Cretaceous oceans. It was fully marine, with flippers and a shark-leg tail fluke. Today, its role as a massive, tooth-filled ambush predator is perfectly mirrored by the saltwater crocodile, which dominates the coastlines with similar, scaly armor and a crushing bite, even though the croc kept its clawed feet to walk along the water's edge. Here's where it gets super interesting from a biomechanical standpoint. The ancient pterodon and the modern pelican share an identical coastal fish-scooping lifestyle. They both use elongated heads and pouches to trap fish, but their takeoff mechanics and wing structures couldn't be more different. First, the launch. The pterodon relied on a heavy quadrupedal launch, essentially catapulting itself into the air using both its arms and legs. The pelican? It's a bipedal launcher that pushes off using only its legs. And for wing support, the pterodon literally held its wing membranes up with a single, hyperextended fourth finger. That's a total contrast to the pelican's multi-fingered feathered wings. Let's look at some of the weirdest examples in Section 5, Bizarre Prehistoric Biomechanics. Picture the Parasaurolophus and the modern red kangaroo. Both of these animals share a perfectly mirrored bipedal frame and a really heavy counterbalancing tail. They both rest on all fours to graze, and they both stand totally upright to scan for danger. But even with this identical foundational posture, the way they actually travel is completely different. It's a perfect example of how a creature's environment dictates its movement. The Parasaurolophus was a heavy-set runner, moving with a steady, rhythmic gait across prehistoric plains. The red kangaroo, on the other hand, is a highly specialized hopper that uses elastic tendons for intense, high-impact jumping across the outback. Before we reveal our next modern lookalike, I want you to just let this number sink in. 50 tons. That was the staggering weight of the warm-blooded Brachiosaurus, a colossal, incredibly slow-moving, long-necked giant. So how does a 550-pound, 4-foot-long, cold-blooded Galapagos tortoise perfectly mirror a 50-ton dinosaur? Well, the saddleback tortoise has a specially shaped shell designed specifically to allow its long neck to reach straight upward. It uses a vertical neck posture and thick, pillar-like legs to forage on high canopy vegetation. That is the exact same survival strategy used by the 70-foot Brachiosaurus millions of years ago. Nature literally just shrunk the blueprint down. We're wrapping up with a truly terrifying matchup: the prehistoric Oviraptor and its modern mirror, the Cassowary. They share a very distinct thick-necked silhouette, an identical hollow bony crest on their heads, and highly, highly aggressive territorial behavior. Honestly, though, the Cassowary might be even more formidable in close quarters. It traded the Oviraptor's grasping hands for specialized wings, and it has a longer tail. But more importantly, the Cassowary comes packing a lethal, dagger-like inner toe claw that the Oviraptor just didn't have. The source material actually drops this intense warning about the sheer danger of these modern-day living dinosaurs. It literally says, if you ever find yourself facing a modern-day cassowary, even a prehistoric Oviraptor wouldn't be enough to save you.
It's a pretty stark reminder, right? The legends of the past are massive, sure, but the lookalikes of the modern world are just as stunning, and sometimes a whole lot more dangerous.
From the ancient, earth-shaking giants of the past to the brilliantly adapted lookalikes of today, our fascination with these biological blueprints just keeps growing. So I gotta ask, which of these iconic animals captures your imagination the most? Are you team prehistoric originals, or do you prefer their incredible modern mirrors? Think about that as we wrap up this explainer. Keep analyzing, keep exploring, and I will catch you in the next one.